Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. We are a week before festivities start, and that's what we're going to be talking about here tonight. I'm Kieran, and I'm a consultant and researcher and whatnot. And at the moment, although I might not be in the future, I'm a trustee of Autistic Parents UK, and that's not a bad thing. Me not being it, it's just a capacity thing. So we are here to talk about festive stuff, and we're here with Tanya and Lydia. Who wants to go next?
Go on, Lydia.
Okay, I'm Lydia. I'm the services lead at Autistic Parents UK. I'm here just to let people in and manage the look after the technology this evening, while these two wonderful people talk to you.
While we rabbit on.
Yeah. I'm Tanya Adkin. I am a person that does a lot of things about autism, specifically in the social care and education sector. I talk a lot about monotropism as well. God, I do so much stuff, don't I, Karen? But nobody sees it. I have an MA in autism from Sheffield Hallam as of today. And I suppose
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. I did the thing. Not bad for somebody who left school GCSEs, eh? But and hopefully soon to be published peer-reviewed researcher as well. That seems to be like the pipeline for us autistic people, doesn't it? But yeah, so we do a lot of things, and we are, we're all autistic parents ourselves as well as being autistic professionals and autistic people. So we're going to talk about Christmas and festivities, or basically anything really that you want to ask us that's related to that sort of stuff. But we do have to mention that this is being recorded as well. So make sure that if you've got your face on the screen or anything like that, or you speak, that you may be recorded, because the recording's sent out afterwards for others to watch. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping. So anyway, Kieran, Christmas.
Actually, I've got a question about your masters first before we go into that.
Okay, go for it.
Now that you are Master of Autism, because that's effectively what your title is now. So what's changed? What do you know that you didn't know?
Bugger all. I would say, okay, so that sounds really dismissive. I would say, if anything, for me, the usefulness of doing the MA in autism, and it's really, really weird because there was a lot of my stuff that was all referenced in the course materials, especially the Spectrum 10K stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, we did that. So there was a lot of kind of like challenging backwards and forwards, but actually it was useful for me to teach me a way to order my arguments and thoughts and to communicate in that kind of field, and then decide that it was all crap and I didn't want to have that fight with those people because ew. But actually, I faced up throughout it. I kind of like reprocessed an awful lot of education trauma going through that entire process, and it was traumatic for me to do that, but that was probably the biggest thing for me. Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because
you
did yours through Sheffield.
Straight line. Sorry, I've got a lag. But yeah, writing in straight lines and writing essays and structure and things like that, and things that my brain don't naturally do. And I still don't do them. And I'm still not going to do it now. I've learned how to do it. But yeah, all that stuff, that's what I learned how to do. I didn't learn how to, it didn't give me new knowledge, I don't think.
Right. You did yours through Sheffield, didn't you? Sheffield Hallam.
Hallam.
Yeah. See, that's what I was thinking, because obviously, out of all of the uni courses, Sheffield is probably one of the most progressive in the country. But yet you still faced up to lots of systemic issues and also lots of knowledgey kind of stuff as well, didn't you? Though you had to do a lot of debating, shall we say?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's really, really easy when your own bubble and the environment that you've created for yourself, especially like socially and professionally, when it's just an assumption that everybody is coming at it from a specific angle or a specific understanding, or that actually don't realise that is very much not the case, even with people who are like lecturers or experts or neurodiversity affirming, and what that actually means, and is there such thing as neurodiversity. So I think it made me a lot more it opened my eyes to a lot of what's out there that's supposed to be top tier. And yeah, it really messed with my imposter syndrome on that front. Those kind of questions that you ask yourself, like, who died and made us an expert? And then you go, oh, I see it now. It's not because we're good, it's because everyone else is rubbish. No, that sounds really bad, but that does sound really bad, doesn't it? But yeah, it's
it does speak to that level of poor quality information that's out there, though, doesn't it? And
yeah,
literally last week, I've had some like weird bronchial thing going on, probably COVID. And last Monday I had a temperature of nearly 41. Tuesday I had to go and do training, and I did 2 days of training. Shouldn't have done it, but managed to kind of push through as we do, and then collapse in a big heap afterwards. And I had people coming up to me saying, "Oh, this is like the best training I've ever done," and I was like, "I don't even remember what I've been talking to you about for 2 days." So the level of the bar is really low, and that's not saying that we're really low, like we're only just above the low bit, but the bar is set that low that people are really easily pleased, and that's really dangerous.
Is it, or is it just that we inherently do have imposter syndrome, and we are constantly told that
No, I mean, people are easily pleased by whatever's out there and don't question it or critique it in any way, or don't know to.
No, but in terms of like the training that you're delivering or the stuff that I'm doing and writing about, because I think exactly the same as you, but actually maybe we might know our stuff, Kieran. But that is a potential. Maybe we might know just a little bit, just a tad. Yeah, we'll take a little bit, but yeah. Emma said they really wanted to do an MA, but the SA's still are heading. I had a good convo with Luke about it, and also so much money. Okay, so the one thing that I will talk about is the courses ran by Stephen Connolly, and I would have not done it if that man did not drag me through that by my toes. Honestly, it's just made so autism friendly in terms of structure and breaking things down, and it's delivered by a very, very aggressively autistic man, and I mean that in the most awesome way. But yeah, it's definitely worth doing. You'd be surprised at what you'd be able to achieve. Like, I am super chaotic, but I did it. If I can do it, anybody can.
Yeah.
The comments in there, Kiana said, "You guys know your stuff for sure. No low bar for you." And Dana said, "It's actually not easy to find." Yeah, more quality training, especially after doing Inside of Autism course. So,
which is a scary thing for me, and that's I wrote that nearly 6 years ago now. And that's like I'm doing a big overhaul and update on it, and none of what's in it is like irrelevant, or nothing's moved on dramatically from there. But that it was progressive then and it's still progressive now, that troubles me greatly.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, is there much new stuff that you've found since that, Kieran?
There's
I think most new stuff comes from us, for us, by us, and I mean that in a community sense.
Yeah, and I think the foundations of what I teach in it, that's not changed at all. Like the overarching principles and the foundational research and stuff. And there's been building work upon building work. There's new stuff that always can be kind of drawn in and stuff like that. But even in like the first session, for anyone that hasn't been on it, I go through the history of autism. And the fundamental impact of the history of autism has not changed. Like nothing has changed really dramatically. And even thinking about, our educational experiences compared to our children's now educational experiences, the word autism is thrown around. We have all this autism awareness. Nothing's actually changed. If anything, it's got worse. So and the stuff we're seeing kind of within, I'm sure we'll talk at some point today about like the home ed community and the stuff that's going on with that, and the clamping down that's happened over the last week. And actually we are the most progressive country in the world when it comes to understanding autistic people in terms of academically and in terms of our advocacy kind of community. Although there's still massive problematic issues running through that, but to say that we're the bar, that's really bad. That's how low things are. We are the best place in the world. Scotland particularly is the best place in the world, but yet it's still awful.
Yeah, there's a few people who commented. Emma said,
sorry, I've got lag, haven't I? I really don't like the education system. It's fundamentally, I think it's one of those, isn't it? Whenever it's going to cost money or make people have to change the status quo, they just tick boxes.
Oh god, yeah.
But yeah, and it makes absolutely no sense really, because actually there's such an untapped resource in neurodivergent people.
God, yeah. It is being tapped. It's being tapped by people in the wrong way, and those who are often tapped are not always the people you would want to be the ones to be tapped, and that's the people who toe the line, or the people that play the game, and the people that don't push back. And
and there's courses that people have to do which make them experts then, but there's no one there to talk to that help. So if they're in certain businesses like teaching, courses that have to be done then means that you've got a certificate that says you can do this, and actually there's no real person at the end of it saying, well, talk to me and talk about what you've learned and how it can be moved into the everyday with the kids, is there?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's kind of training is never the answer, never the complete answer. It's a part of some of the answer, but ultimately you can give anybody all the information you want. Nobody out there is really regulating the quality of that information. We've seen with what's happened in the NHS in terms of the training that's gone into there. We've got two models of training in England that have gone into the NHS in terms of the Oliver McGowan training and the National Autism Trainer Project. The National Autism Trainer Project, the training materials are a far better quality than anything else that's officially kind of out there. But even then, that had its own problematicness and that had its massive issues, and that stopped now. The Oliver McGowan training rumbles on, and for all intents and purposes, from everything that I've seen and other people have seen, it's terrible. So again, like, that's the level of information that people are getting, which is problematic, misinformed often still. And then there's nobody, like you said, Lydia, doing the embedding work, nobody doing the supervision work, nobody doing the actually what meaningfully are you going to now do with this information. And and there's people like us who are kind of trying to do those things and getting into small spaces, but we're like a handful of people in a country full of millions, and then it goes beyond Britain. Like, where's everybody else in the world doing this? And it's really scary. It makes you remember how doing the work that we do makes you remember how small a little bubble we kind of exist within. And it's really, really healthy for us to stick our head out. As traumatizing as it is, it's really healthy for us to repeatedly stick our heads outside of that bubble and just see how desperate things are, because they really, really are bad.
Yeah. Don't know, they really are. They are. As somebody who works within the family court systems, can confirm, terrible, beyond terrible, devastating, like death causing, awful. Anyway, but having said that though, it's changed an awful lot since I started. It's some for the worse and some for the better. I feel like we seem to be branching off in different directions now, though. It almost seems to be like there's division coming back in as well. We used to have that, but yeah, we're getting there, I think. But I also think there's a lot of kind of like people are running with like the neurodiversity movement and almost kind of it's neurodiversity light again as well, isn't it? So we're getting a lot of that. Neurodiversity, it is moving into schools and stuff, and awareness is while we're saying, you know, that Oliver McGowan training is not nowhere near where it needs to be, obviously it's not, but what did we have prior to that?
Mm.
You know, so we're moving in the right direction. But the problem is, even with all of the knowledge in the world, if you've got the most knowledgeable teachers and doctors and everybody else in the world, but you've not got the facilities to create environments that do not damage people, it does not matter. So basically, maybe it isn't that the knowledge isn't there and that people can't find it and that all the training's crap, and that's not the problem. Maybe it's the cognitive dissonance that if we don't know, then we don't have to feel the guilt for not fixing it.
Yeah, I think we've seen that with the home education bill this week.
Mm.
That there's a lack of discussion of the need to reform social care and education, but a big, let's just put the blame on the most vulnerable part of this community and like where children are, and you know, the ones that we can stamp on. And I think that's really indicative of the lack of will to change within systemic kind of environments. And I think everyone's too comfortable. Everyone's too comfortable in their discomfort, and they know, everyone knows it. Every professional that I talk to knows that it's not working, that everything's not working, and that it's not even that it's falling apart, that it hasn't been working for a very long time, and they've just woken up to that fact. And it's doing exactly what it was designed. All these systems are doing exactly what they were meant to do. They're not breaking down at all. They're just doing what their purpose was, what their original purpose was. And I think within all that, there's just a lack of energy or will to change. There's a fear of confronting it, of challenging it, of being even more uncomfortable than you already are. And you know, I think especially with authorities and services, there's that wage fear hanging over people as well, that, you know, we'll just take your job away if you challenge. Well, we won't pay you. And
yeah, so I'm looking at this. So I just obviously, you know, I just did the masters, and the research piece that I did was autistic parents' experiences of children's social care in England. Which I thought I was actually prepared for because of my day job being quite traumatic and trauma heavy anyway. I was not prepared for that. When we talk about things being systemic and challenging and stuff, social care is a very good example of that, because you have people leaving that trade hand over fist. We have the numbers that are going up and up and up of children, like looked after children and children in care. And the numbers of like Section 7 investigations are going up and up and up. But yet the rates of serious case reviews and child abuse are staying steadily the same since they haven't from in the 60s and 70s. We're becoming more, and what we basically found, and this is replicated across the board, is it's not an individual practitioner problem at all. It's not. Because there's an awful lot of, you know, it's very easy to fall into this narrative of us and them. And trust me, I have sat on the opposite table of local authorities and schools and doctors and CCGs, you name it, I've done it, you know. I don't have any problem going to war, but ultimately when they're operating within a system where they don't have the tools to look through any other lens but parental blame or normalization, it's the system that is being very effective at what it was designed to do in the first place. And what happens is practitioners or even local authorities to a certain degree, or even governments, get scapegoated. And then they'll go back to normal, etc., etc. And all that happens is austerity just makes it worse. Right-wing kind of neoliberal attitudes toward parenting just makes it worse. So the more right-wing we go, or the more into austerity that we fall in, the more there's this kind of wholesome belief that parenting should be a parenting issue, and you shouldn't be raising children that take from the state, only give back to the state, because that's the point in having children. And that's where we get headlines that blame immigrants for stealing our jobs, or disabled people for committing benefit fraud, bearing in mind that not one disabled person has ever been, if you've ever filled in a DLA form, good luck with trying to commit fraud, you know, things that are an actual impossibility. But yeah, the systemic issues, it's very easy to go, oh, let's go and do a bit of training, but it's piecemeal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We have got a lot of comments in the chat. I don't know if you want to
Yeah, I'm having a look now. What are we looking
Let's
at?
pick out if there's any questions. I think it's mainly people sort of agree, disagree in their views on where we're at. There was something I thought was really interesting.
There we go.
Yes.
I think I've had what you've had, Kieran, as well. I've only been like out and about for the past 2 days, and I've still got a face full of it.
Reading.
I love that Dana's put in there. Anyway, who's not having
to say we've had the
Christmas?
subject changed.
Who's not? Who's not? I love how we've just like doom dumped. Like, is that a thing?
There's
Like,
there's a
doom in
there's a segue that we can take here, which would lead us nicely to who's not having turkey for Christmas. In the one thing that I wanted to respond to everything you said there with is the kind of, and this is very relevant obviously for our audience of parents, is how many people look to those same systems for the answers when they don't exist within them. And then because people are conditioned to look to those systems for the answers, then because they're normalized and conditioned into doing that, then that creates often more problems for yourself than it solves, and you end up in ludicrous, I mean, I use the word ludicrous not as in haha it's funny, but ludicrous as in the most incompetent, ridiculous, disgusting places that people find themselves in. I know there are many people in this room right now who have been in those spaces, and that's all coming from looking for a normalized system to create answers for a non-normalized situation. And all of that arises from just
so we have to remember it's part of the machine, and this was kind of the what I pulled out of my research was that fundamentally we create tools based around normativity and normalization, specifically in terms of like social care intervention, but we do this in schools, hospitals, medicals, psychiatry, whatever,
everywhere,
that don't work, create further trauma and further need for intervention, which then is measurable. And it basically perpetuates the need for the social care intervention and the existence of things like parent blame, fee, perplexing presentations, and all that, whatever you want to call it. So it's just a self-feeding machine. And we're just batteries, basically. We've all seen the Matrix, right? I'm not, that's kind of ironic, kind of not though, but you know.
I know.
Anyway,
should we talk turkeys?
Yeah, we've gone back to turkey.
I'm not having turkey for Christmas because it's bloody vile. Like, why do we just only like wait? Like, why?
I would eat turkey all year round, but it's really expensive outside of the winter months.
Is that because it's really plain though and doesn't really taste of anything and it's a bit dry?
Only if you cook it that way, Tanya.
Mm. Oof. I won't be cooking a turkey. Do you cook the turkey in your house, Mr. O?
Do all the cooking in my house every single day of the year. So Christmas Day is different to me.
Oh no.
See, I'm one of these people that doesn't practice what they preach in terms of, like we always talk about, and I'm sure we probably would have talked about this tonight anyway, about the kind of, not worrying about the Christmas pomp and the primping and all of the kind of like just treat it like a day like any other day and not make it overwhelming and stuff. But I bloody love feeding people. And that's a real problem for me. I hate people in my house, but I love feeding people. So therefore, people get invited over to my house and I feed them. And if I'm going to feed people, I'm going to feed them bloody properly. And then create enough food that it lasts for like 3 years or something.
I'm also a feeder, but I have to wait until I can get hooked into it. Do you know what I mean? Because if I decide that I'm doing the feeding of people, then it's like it's an affair. It's like you can't do things by halves. Do you know what I mean? It's like full.
You're all in or not?
Full. But now, actually, I just don't. And as much as I'd love to do that, I just don't have the bloody spoons. So there's just me and my oldest this year for Christmas, because my youngest with his dad, but like, no, we're good, thanks. So I was like, what do you want, Josh? What do you want? And do you know what he's asked for? He's just asked for a steak. So that's what we're doing.
Nice. Kieran, you've got the best response here. Emma said that she wished she lived near you because you could drop food off because the kid won't go to anyone's house and then you wouldn't have to deal with people. That's the answer.
Obviously, I know where you live, and I don't mean that in a stalky, weird kind of way. But I do know where you live, and unfortunately, the only solution I can come up with is if we can get a courier to work on Christmas Day, I'll meet you your Christmas dinner and send it to you. But it might be a bit cold by the time you get
it. Kieran, I just think I've thought of the most awesome side quest for you to do on Christmas Day, and also earn a bit of cash. You can just make loads of food and just spend the whole day delivering Meals on Wheels.
I'm not sure I get very far on my bike though. That was it'd have to be very local.
Yeah, like Deliveroo type thing. That way you don't have to socialize with people after you fed them, because you'd be like, sorry, got deliveries. Oh, kitching. Anyway, questions. Does anybody actually have any questions for us? Or are we just going to sit here and just be
Christmas related questions, non-Christmas related questions?
So we've got, how do I get Rachel? Do you want to take Rachel's, Tanya, at the bottom?
Yeah, I can see. How do you cope with the marathon of parenting through the holidays? I'm a single mum of a toddler and there's no breaks. Okay. Acceptance is a big one. Like, you're going to be dysregulated. It's going to be difficult. So that acceptance and that understanding of what you think you should be achieving, if that makes sense. So it depends. Look at what got on at times. Breaks, screens, earplugs are great, but yeah, acceptance mainly. How expand on that, Mr. Rose?
Yeah, expand on that. Yeah, I think Christy Forbes uses the term radical acceptance in terms of this, doesn't she? And this really comes from this place of having to lean into the situation that you are in. There is, unless someone's going to magically parachute out of the sky, your situation isn't going to change. So, and this is going to sound really condescending, and I do not mean it to sound like that, but you have to make the best of what you've got. And if that is your situation, then what tiny ways can you find to alleviate the stress for yourself? So that would be things like maybe having earplugs in or having noise cancelling headphones. It might be periodic visits to the toilet where you stick your head out the window and scream for 5 minutes. It just even little snatches of things like that. One thing that's always was I was a stay-at-home dad, and we had 3 under 4 at one point, which was great fun. And literally stepping outside for 2 minutes and getting that, especially at this time of year when there's such a sensory shift in terms of temperature and things like that. So coming from a warm house out into the cold just for 2 minutes, getting that blast of air, it's refreshing. It can reset you. Does for me. It won't work for everybody. Drinking lots of water, things like that. So just making sure that you are looking after yourself in so many ways. And what we often find is that the control that we have, the agency that we have over our situations is different for everybody, obviously. And even for people who feel like they have absolutely no control over what they've got going on in their house and what's going on in their lives, you will still have an element of control. It's just finding that, no matter how tiny it is, and those tiny little bits can sometimes build into much bigger things. Once you realize that you can do something, once you realize there is a tiny little bit that you can take back, then there might be another thing that you hadn't thought of and another thing that you hadn't thought of. And then all of a sudden things often change without us realizing. And the other thing as well, which doesn't help in the immediacy of now, is that toddlers don't stay toddlers. Right now, like the whole can't see the woods for the trees thing, I remember that so well. And it was kind of, I felt like we reeled from one developmental thing to the next, where it was like teething and then toddlers and then not sleeping. Like you just barrage from one into the other. And then all of a sudden, somehow you come out the other side. And that doesn't necessarily mean that things are any easier, but things change constantly, which is a big stress inducer. But it's also a good thing because that means that nothing is going to stay as it is. So if you can snatch those elements of control, then that's really going to help with that.
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing that really helps me even now, because my youngest, even though he's 8, honestly, he's only just started to be left on his own for like, and by on his own, I mean like for 10 minutes with somebody not in the room, like hugging him. So routine works really well. And I don't mean imposing routine on your children, but imposing routine on yourself. Because if you're looking at the Christmas holidays as like, I don't know, 2 weeks of full on craziness really with no break, then that's going to really make things difficult for you. But if you can chunk it down, so for example, routines of things like, right, okay, what time do they get up? When we get up, we're going to have breakfast at this time. After we get breakfast, we're going to have tea at this time. Then we're going to go to the park every day, and if the park is wet, we're going to go here, because then when they're running over there, I'm going to watch from over here, but literally just sit on a bench with headphones in. There's an hour's peace. Then we're going to come back. Then we're going to put the TV on because I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning. And then it's going to be lunchtime and there's another half an hour's piece. So if you're looking at things in increments during the day goes quicker. You're getting through it a lot better. And actually, you tend to find when you're following the routine, your young person will almost just like slot into that rhythm with you. Now, as with babies, never ever impose a routine. You just kind of have to find that rhythm that you're both going to get into. So it may be that every afternoon, you know, there is iPad time or Peppa Pig time, and you have a little snooze on the sofa when you're half there with your eye open, or whatever. Or it may be like every morning, if you know that, you know, baths kind of get them in the wake up, then we do that in the morning. And then you've got like at least a good 20 minutes to sit outside the bathroom door and scroll on your phone while keeping one eye on the child. It's those little snatchings of minutes that are going to help, rather than, because if you're coming at it, and this again sounds really gaslighty, but it's not meant in this way. But if you're coming at it with the attitude that this is like, oh my God, this is this is not going to work, I'm going to have meltdowns, etc., you probably will. And because of co-regulation and the impact of co-regulation on children, they will feel that unease as well. Whereas if you're chunking it down into manageable bite-sized chunks of what you're going to do, and literally you make it the same every day, same foods really help for that reason as well. You know, so when you're dealing with busy times, it can be same foods for lunch, like which say all those things snatch spoons back.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one thing that I remember I always used to do with mine when things were getting overwhelming within that structure, because I used to do exactly what Tanya suggested, you know, like chunking things down into small bite-size, easy kind of things that, you know, I'm just getting through this bit and now I can get through this bit and now I can get through this bit, was also pattern disruption. So within that, just doing something absolutely spontaneously mad and crazy in the middle of the room that the children are not expecting to happen. That might be if I'm folding up the washing or whatever, ball up some socks and start throwing them at them. You know your child, like I knew my children and knew what would work and what wouldn't. But things like that, suddenly just putting on some music and dancing, starting dancing around the living room and singing at the top of my voice, like random things, which then energize them, can get them excited, but also can tire them out that little bit more. So then they do get bored quickly and then they want to go away and do their own thing. So sometimes doing things intensely with our kids can make them then want to step away of their own accord and say, yeah, I've had enough of this now. I want to go and do my own thing. So it's, you can plan those things and still make them look spontaneous as well, like for the people that need that kind of structure of planning. So there's so much you can do within that. And these are exactly what Tanya's just described there. Hopefully what I've just described, they're just a couple of ways that you can snatch a bit of agency over this. And at the end of the day, all any of us are seeking is more autonomy. You know, like
and spoons. Not forgetting spoons.
and we want to be in control of what's going on around us and in our lives, because that makes us feel comfortable and safe, because we lack so much autonomy outside of our own spaces. So when that lack of autonomy comes into our own space, that's enormous. And where do you get that kind of respite? So, which is a weird way of looking at respite, but it is actually respite to have more control. That's a reduction of demand, that's a reduction of stress, and that's more control over your situation. So any way you can snatch that in tiny little sustainable ways is going to build up over time.
Another element to that as well is about interoceptive awareness, and how when you're kind of under the boot, if you like, your interoceptive awareness kind of falls off of a cliff. So that kind of little snatches of almost hype, if you like, and spontaneity really help with your interoceptive awareness, which balances you. Because if you just like following the same routine day in, day out, there needs to be flex in that, don't get me wrong, but we're doing that to reduce monotropic split for ourselves, so that we can have that little bit of spare breathing space. But yeah, things like kitchen discos, tickle fights, if that's what you're into, sensory play, you know, going out in the cold, all of those things increase our interoceptive awareness. And if our interoceptive awareness is increased, then our ability to self-regulate is increased as well. And our sense of where our regulation is increased. So therefore our young person's regulation is much better.
There's a few people have asked if it's available to watch, so I'm going to say yes. Emma's given an idea. Somebody had a game. Whilst they closed their eyes, the kid had to put soft toys and balance them on their back, so minimal interaction from the parent.
We used to do play acting sleeping. And it worked for about 6 months, and then they got wise to it. Hold on a minute, Dad's just lying there with his eyes shut, and we haven't moved for half an hour.
Yeah. I know. I wish that would have worked with my kids. Unfortunately, it did not. But yeah, also another thing that I would say is let go of the Instagram ideas of what you should be doing. PJ day, floor picnics, beige foods, totally acceptable. Absolutely acceptable. McDonald's 2 days in a row won't kill your kid. You know?
I've got 2 questions.
Okay.
We've got 2 questions. One is how do we make, like, as individuals, make sure we're kind to themselves enough to try and communicate face to face with children, instead of sort of stress head which judges and bosses the child, because they're sounds like
inner critic,
not on the same wavelength as each other.
yeah,
and they wanting to try and communicate instead of being stressed and judging.
So I think you need to understand where kind of like stress comes from. And I think whenever you're communicating, or whenever somebody is communicating, try and look for what the emotion is underneath what's being said. You know, it's really difficult as well, because kids inherently are a massive demand, and they can be so emotionally triggering. I mean, I literally give parenting advice for a living, you know, but if I manage it 60% of the time with my own kids, I'm lucky. And we say that when we look at therapeutically parenting children in any way, if you manage it 60% of the time. But actually what I would say is being hard on yourself never worked, did it? You know, because otherwise you wouldn't be here asking how I'm not hard on myself. One thing that I would say to start with, and this always blows neurotypical parents' minds, I don't know about autistic parents, is when you are snappy, apologize to your kids. You know, like open up that kind of very leveling line of communication that you are struggling and they are struggling. I'm sorry if I snapped, because the thing is, their kids are mirrors, you know, and it can be really difficult, and you can be really stressed, and you can steal these, but you can do it's really difficult to say to somebody, this is how you regulate and co-regulate with your children, because you don't know what the issues are. But what I would say is focusing on repair, because when you start opening that kind of emotional language, if you like, around kind of apologizing, and you start modeling sharing your own kind of emotional experience, that's when that will come back generally, because we have to model. We often like childify children, if that makes sense. You know, like there's some entity that need to be protected from emotion and anything adult, and we can't tell. But actually, that's just a cultural thing, you know. I think we do sometimes forget to talk a lot to our children. And it's not really about apologizing as such as, oh, I'm sorry. It's about going, hey, you know, it's about acknowledging the impact on them. It's about getting comfortable in those kind of conversations, if that makes sense, and being a bit more therapeutic. And if you can, sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, don't we, to all of a sudden be kind to ourselves and use the right language and tick all the boxes. But actually, sometimes we have to practice that with other people to then reflect that back onto ourselves, because that's just another big demand.
Yeah, I think it's about that level of honesty is so important. And I think modeling it like that is key to their learning, because how do they learn how to express themselves if they don't see anybody around them honestly expressing themselves? You know, and there are always going to be times when you are dysregulated, when you're overwhelmed, you're going to be snappy, you're going to be grumpy, you're going to say things and do things. Owning that, firstly, that repair work is really key, but also having those honest conversations with them, which they, you know, they might not fully understand when they're little, but as they grow older, hopefully they will do. In terms of, you know, like, I experience the same things that you do. Just because I'm 20, 30 years older than you doesn't mean that I'm any different. And that if we are more honest and open about what we're experiencing together and about the impact of each other on each other, and the impact of all these other stresses on ourselves as well, then we're going to have a much healthier relationship. And I think, so one of the interesting things that my children grew up in a house of chaos, because they were loud, they were rumptious, they were doing all the things, actual, you know, conversation was happening through text, but there was lots of noise. And whenever anybody comes to our house now, they're like 15 and 14 and 11, they always comment on, oh, your house is so peaceful and quiet. And that has literally come from like now I've got, like, literally the other week, last week, took my last child out. I've got 3 children, took my last one out of school. So all 3 are home educated now, although that's been coming for quite a while with the third one. But literally, since bringing them out of school, all the meltdowns stopped, all the dysregulation stopped, and actually there was a calming of everything. And that's not me saying that all these children should be taken out of school, because that's going to work for everybody. But when you start being more open and honest about the stresses that are on you as a parent with your children, and also the stresses on the child, as the child of a parent who is stressed, and experiencing stress themselves, when you're having that open and honest dialogue with them, and if you're doing that as they're growing older and older and older, they will understand more and will appreciate it more, you know. And then they can come to you and talk to you about anything then, and they won't feel that they have to hold things back or have secrets or hide things and things, because it will just be natural for them to be more authentic around you, whatever that means.
And it definitely feels like, certainly generationally, that was never
No.
encouraged, was it? So how are we supposed to grow up and know what being an adult felt like when we were never told?
Yeah.
This comes back again to interoceptive awareness, which, can you tell I just watched something that Kelly did? Kelly Mailer did. Well, it comes back again to interoceptive awareness. Nobody knows how they feel at any time. You know, that's through co-regulation. And actually, maybe we're having, watch this space if you love Kelly, but maybe we're having kind of a little bit of an epidemic of kind of alexithymia and interoception issues because of the cultural impact and the Britishness, if you like, of talking about emotions, because actually sharing how we feel, and it can be your own words, it can be any word, do you know what I mean? Anything, it can be in any expression. it helps you know yourself, and it teaches your children to know themselves as well, even if it's not in the typical ways.
Yeah, I think it's a very westernized culture thing that's come from hundreds of years, and but the Victorians have played a massive role in that, and with the suppression of literally everything, that kind of ideology. I think that's when you start engaging and looking with other cultures, you start realizing it's not the same across the board at all. Not to say that those cultures are perfect, because they're probably not in many ways as well, but you know, we've had generation after generation of numbing, and within that we've had massively traumatizing things go on, like world wars and stuff like that, which have added to that numbing and that having to suppress what everybody's feeling. And I don't, you know, we talk about alexithymia like it's an autistic person problem, and it isn't really. It's not. It's another construct that doesn't really exist. It's it's groups of people, not just individuals, whole groups of people who have been gaslit about how they're feeling and haven't been supported to find their own emotional literacy. And that emotional literacy doesn't look like neurotypical emotional literacy necessarily either. Because, you know, I think we said this the last time, and I've talked about this a lot recently because I'm doing so much work with mental health practitioners. We don't have language to describe autistic feelings and emotions. We do not.
We don't have
to
language to describe.
No.
Yeah, we don't have language to describe feelings and emotions.
No.
And everything's so individual, dependent on so many intersecting factors, that ultimately it absolutely makes no sense that you are assigned to use one of these words off a wheel or something, otherwise therefore you are disordered.
I mean, how do you feel, Tanya, right now? How do you feel?
Irritated. But this is the thing. And this is, and you know, this comes back into, like, you know, look at, so if we're monotropic, right? When we feel in detail. So whoever feels just one thing,
Nobody.
you know,
Yeah.
I might be feeling 1% of irritated, but 3% of tired, and then actually 70% of happiness, because actually things are pretty good and I like a big thing's been, you know, so it's a lot of overwhelm, you know. And actually, I think sometimes, especially for monotropic people, it can be somewhat unhealthy to have almost this forced direct focus on what range of neurotypical emotion that you are feeling. It can sometimes push people in the wrong direction. I think sometimes the narratives around depression, anxiety, eating disorder do that as well. So yeah, just regulate. Do what feels right for you. Create your own language.
That's I think as parents, often it is a struggle to be in the moment with our children, because we're worrying about this, we're worrying about that, we're worrying about what might happen, we're worrying about what our neighbours doing, we're worrying about what some person on Facebook or Instagram is going on holiday, and like there's so many different things that we're worrying about that actually we often quite forget to just be, and to just sit and play and engage and mess around and be silly and talk and feel things. And, you know, I think so much of that just gets lost along the wayside of expectation everywhere.
It can be really difficult as well to find things to do with your kids that are quite connecting, because obviously, you know, playing things that aren't special interests or whatever for us can be quite difficult. So you're looking at kind of all the neurotypical baking cookies and this, oh God, no. Do you know what I mean? Or like or anything like building Legos, that can be quite a fun one. That's very autism friendly. But we found things like we can do together, you know, we can coexist in the same space watching particular favorite films that we have in common, which is also a great thing. Or like we will color together because like we're existing, but I'm colouring like adult fairy castles and Rowan's colouring dinosaurs because that's his thing. Or so it's also finding those things that you can do alongside each other that offer you a break and them a break, but it's not necessarily being in each other's face all the time as well.
That's the key to parallel play, which so many of our kids really, really benefit from. That
That
you
was
don't.
the word just left me.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, even you don't even both have to be coloring. One of you could be doing one thing, and one of you can do another, and you can chat while you're doing it, or you can talk, or you can just watch what each other's doing, or like they're just being, literally just being, but being alongside each other rather than taking a hierarchical role or leading something, or let's do this activity, or let's just be together.
Which
Yeah.
kind of what you were talking about feeds in with one of the questions we've had about coping with the guilt of hating the busyness everywhere and not wanting to go out during the Christmas holidays, but then having children whose childhood you're depriving,
Oh,
feeling like you
well,
are.
Mm.
it's sometimes really easy to project what we feel are our own shortcomings or ideals and stuff and think that our children must feel that way. And I think for me especially, I had to do a lot of work in therapy looking at my own childhood and the things that I felt mum guilt for, because I'm a mum that needs to go to work and needs to keep their brain busy to be mentally well, and all that stuff. And I had to do a lot of work around like ideals and how much of those expectations that I was placing on me and then creating narratives about what my children must feel to kind of feed that guilt and shame rather than what was actually going on, if that makes sense. Um, children, as somebody who works with a lot of children who are severely neglected and abused, I can guarantee you are probably not depriving your children. And good parents don't worry about depriving their children. Okay. So literally, I think the statistic is that you need to be a present and decent regulated parent 40% of the time to create a present, decent, and regulated child. That's not a high bar. So a little bit like me and Kieran were talking about when we were talking about the knowledge base. And if we're it, then, it must be crap. Well, actually, maybe we need to be a bit more kinder to ourselves with it. And ultimately, you have a disability. You are a disabled parent. Be a disabled parent, The idea of normal does not exist. Every single person is going to have boxes that they can't necessarily tick great. You might have a wonderful ADHD parent who can go out to all of the rides and this, that, and the other, but always forgets the lunch or the PE kit or so on and so forth, or the uniform, or sends them to school disheveled. But they have a wonderful, or you can have an autistic parent that is like so meticulous and timed and blah blah blah, but would not set foot in a theme park. Like there's pluses and minuses to every style of parenting, as long as they are safe emotionally, educationally, they are loved, they are cared for, they are nurtured, fed, watered, they're having the basic care needs met. Honestly, do my job for a week, it make you feel like a great parent.
I wonder as well if it feeds into what Kit we were saying before about talking to the children as well.
Mm.
Honestly.
Asking them what they feel is, and if they're not if they're not old enough to answer those questions, or they're not able to answer those questions, the chances are they're having a fine time. That's the thing, and it's again, it comes back to, I think, the more expectation you place on yourself, the more likely you are to fail. And that's not me saying have no expectations of yourself at all, but you have to be realistic. And I think, and again, that comes back to kind of what we were talking about earlier in terms of my brain's not working tonight either. What we were talking about earlier, Christy's term about radical parenting. Which isn't radical. This is the problem, that it's not, and Christy will say this, that like we call it radical parenting because it looks radical compared to what the rest of the world thinks it's doing. But actually the rest of the world is not like my wife said to me the other day, like we've got friends who like literally they've got a new build house, they go on holiday all the time, we know what jobs we do, we know how much they earn. And I'm sitting there saying to her, yeah, they've got all those things because they've got massive debt, don't you? And like got massive credit card debt, and they can only have those things they can only be in financial precariousness in order to have all those things. So yes, they might be creating all what they think are wonderful memories for their children, but I wonder at one point whether their children are going to turn around and go, well, A, you've left us nothing. You've got no legacy other than debt. And B, why didn't we ever spend any time at home? You know, did you ever actually do anything with us? We went on holiday and we got put in kids clubs and we went and did this and we went in water parks but you never actually played with us. You just watched us doing things, So looking back at my childhood
as well.
Sorry, Tanya.
Back into routines as well. There are a lot of activities that mean going out and about take a lot less spoons, especially in summer. So the idea that you should be taking your kids out and doing things 24/7 and going swimming every day, blah blah blah, do once or twice a month. Create limited choices on things that work for everyone. Do you know what I mean? So you're chunking it down instead of thinking in absolutes, like I never take my kids anywhere, I really don't want to do this, and it's sort of, actually, this week, this is what we're going to do. And then in 2 weeks' time, that's what we're going to do, and it's about, I think high spoons you sometimes has to make plans for low spoons you as well. So while what Kieran is saying is exactly true, like let go of the expectations that you've got to be doing all the things all the time, also it might help to go, okay, so what are those expectations that I have on myself? What should that look like, and what can I achieve, and why should I be, just picking apart a bit. But yeah, you don't have to what do you think parenting looks like for other people that aren't you?
Yeah.
Because it's not that different. Honestly, it's not.
And the other thing I'd say this as well, because they mentioned specifically like going to busy places. If that's a problem for you, that's probably going to be a problem for your children as well. So if you're negatively impacted by that, then whether that's their own experience, they're going to be negatively impacted by being in a busy place. You taking some of that busy place is also going to have a negative impact on them because you're going to be negative about it and you're going to feel bad and dysregulated. And so who's having fun? Like really with that? And yeah, I just think it's somebody said just now, it flashed up about quality over quantity. And I'm not someone who likes, but I hate busy spaces. But there are contexts within which I'm really happy in a busy space. If you take me to a gig where, I love the band, that's a busy space with loud noise and bright flashing lights and people jostling you. I love it. I have in the last year, I have I only live an hour away from York, but I've discovered York, and it feels like home to me. And every time I've gone there, the streets have been busy, but there's something about it which makes me feel really comfortable, and I can put aside the busyness and I can deal with that because there's other things there so it's about finding what's right for you and your family and whatever that looks like, not the expectation that you should be doing lots of things. They're not going to grow up and go, well, you didn't make me sit on Santa Claus's knee when I was 4. Where's the photo evidence of me doing, like, I didn't want to be sitting on Santa's knee. I used to shut my eyes every time Santa came near because I was terrified. So we have a creation of expectation and normative ideals of what we should be doing and what the world should look like and what our childhood should look like. Nobody's childhood looks like that. And if they do, they're probably going to grow up into traumatized adults.
Yeah. And same places as well. So like we have same food, same activities, we also have same places. So if you want something that's low spoons to do with the kids, you go to the same place, you sit in the same place, you order the same drink, you eat the same food, they do the same activity, and they are happy. For me, it's a particular trampoline park. Same activities are really, really, it's kind of like a cheat sheet for outings. But yeah, it's sorry, I've just seen you sit on a throne of lies come up in the chat from, is that from Elf? Yeah. But yeah, it's those expectations ultimately, and I can guarantee that the kids don't have those expectations,
And there's lots of conversation about wrapping presents. Somebody said, do you need to wrap them gift bags or use like material?
Oh, we use gift bags all the time now. We've got like you can buy them from Amazon dead cheap, and they're reusable. I'm using the same ones every year now. It's funny because
yeah, material ones that I
Yeah.
reuse and then go around and collect them all up so no one can keep them ready for next year.
See, my wife would tell you about her Christmas Day childhood, where she would walk into her living room. They were fairly well off, unlike me, who grew up like with a cardboard box and a piece of coal. But she would walk into the living room, and her mum would never wrap the presents, so all the presents were laid over the sofa. She was an only child as well, so she probably got quite a lot. And she said, "Oh, I always loved that I walked in and I couldn't take everything in at once. Turns out her mum just couldn't be bothered to wrap them. It wasn't because it was anything, like." So like the lies we tell ourselves that we convince ourselves are our truths. And I think, again, bringing it back to that question, the person that asked this question, ask yourself, did you have an idyllic childhood? And if you did, great. But if you try and recreate that for your kids, you're not going to succeed, because their childhood has to look different to yours, because they're different people who have different needs and will want different things. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've
Great.
got, I think we could go on forever with you two.
That's usually the case.
So-
I mean, I joined AP UK as a trustee to hunt down Kieran Rose to get to spend some actual time with him, seeing as he's just like too busy to be my friend now. And now he's leaving. He's leaving me.
I'm still staying here. I'll be in this space.
I know.
And so, I don't know that it's, we're at 7:30. What are you thinking?
That's a dangerous question.
I think we're good. I think we've answered all the questions. We're going to get stuck if we're not careful, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going to get stuck if we're not careful. But it just means we have to do something else in the new year, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll probably be back for more Q&As in the new year as well. And I'm wondering about adding some other Q&As in and what everybody would want to see. I know that we've been asked about looking and see if we can cover things like ADHD, EHCPs, that kind of stuff. I'll have to flip through my Rolodex if anybody's old enough to remember what one of those is.
One's just in my head now.
ADHD. See, that's a good one, Kathy. Or ADHD. In my experience, ADHD, autism, ADHD, whatever, it's funny. It's just signposts for certain like oddball traits. Everybody's so individual. Like me and Kieran probably have the same list of diagnoses. Very, very different. It's so individual. PDA could definitely cover PDA exposure. Yeah, there's so much we can do. But yeah, so we thought about, because we kind of like in this format of Q&A, aren't we, at the minute?
We are. Bobby's just made an offer there, Tanya.
Yeah, Bobby's been chasing me now to do exposure anxiety for a while, but now I've got no university to do. I'm like, I've got time to do things, but yeah.
Yeah, this format within AP UK and also externally for me, and I think probably for you, Tanya, is working. The conversational format is working so much better than the presentation format, and it just feels a bit more natural.
So shall I maybe make a post about, get some ideas on a post on what people might
I think that's a good idea, like posting in the group.
I think that's a really good idea, because I'm sure that me,
open poll or something.
Yeah. Me and Kieran, between us and the other trustees, know so many people who can cover so many topics. So we're friends.
And we'll get a way of maybe putting a box on the sign up to say, what questions do you have?
Yeah, that would be great. Anyway, we're going to get stuck.
Yes, right.
But yeah, no, I like the idea of advocating as an autistic parent. I can actually cover that. I've already got that written, but yeah. So, and that's probably something you could also cover, Lydia.
Why possibly?
I think it might also be quite nice to get some of the other trustees in this space as well and getting them.
Yeah, I totally agree. Would be nice. Yeah.
Make them do it.
We'll just force them. We'll just grab them and force them into the room.
Definitely.
Yeah, feels like a good.
Brilliant. So I was just saying, I think
I've
that's
got
a good
little
time
list of. Yeah, we will start. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. The recording will be probably not this side of Christmas, but we'll get it out.
The Christmas recording won't be up.
We're in a Christmas jumper, look.
Will it? I will see what I can do. Oh, look, why did I not think of it? It's too cold to Christmas jumper.
I forgot my Christmas jumper.
Yeah, I didn't think
That's
so.
why I said.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
I feel like I've let you down now. Right. Thank you, everybody. Oh, okay. Coming out as an autistic parent too. That's another one. Right. I'm going to write it on my list. And yeah, good one. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
See you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.